The target was never money. Elias Vance considered cash a vulgar, transient thing. His passion, his vice, was silence. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of perfect, engineered quiet. He was a collector of sonic voids. His masterpiece, his white whale, was the anechoic sarcophagus. It wasn't a literal coffin, but a room within a room built by a reclusive acoustic engineer named Alistair Finch. Finch, after making a fortune designing soundproof chambers for spy agencies and paranoid celebrities, had built one final, perfect chamber for himself in his country estate. It was said to have a background noise level of -10 decibels, a theoretical impossibility that sucked sound in like a black hole sucks light. Finch had retreated inside it years ago, a hermit in his own silent cathedral, and had never come out. Elias had to have it. Not a replica, the original. He needed to sit where Finch had sat, and hear the sound of his own blood circulating, the rustle of his eyelids blinking. The estate's security was formidable. Pressure wires, seismic sensors, thermal cameras, but Elias wasn't a typical thief. He was a conductor of silence. His plan was not to bypass the alarms, but to make the estate quieter than it already was. His first move was 2 miles away, at a power substation. He didn't cut the power. That would trigger backup generators and battery-powered alarms. Instead, he subtly rerouted the load, creating a minor, consistent voltage drop. The effect was immediate but subtle. The estate's external security lights dimmed by a barely perceptible 5%. The hum of the transformers feeding the property dropped half an octave. It was the first note in his silent symphony. Next, he dealt with the perimeter. The seismic sensors could detect a footfall, so Elias didn't walk. He used a children's toy-long telescoping pole with a suction cup at the end, used for retrieving model airplanes from trees. With painstaking slowness, he placed sound-dampening pads, made of the same material as the sarcophagus, exactly where he would need to step. He was not avoiding the sensors. He was giving them a cushion, ensuring his footsteps registered below their trigger threshold. The thermal cameras were the hardest part. They detected heat. Elias had a solution, absurd in its simplicity. He wore a suit lined with hundreds of small, flexible gel packs, pre-cooled to exactly the ambient night air temperature. He moved with an agonizing glacial slowness that prevented his body from generating excess heat. To the cameras he was a ghost, a man-shaped piece of the cool night itself. It took him 6 hours to cross the lawn. Inside, the challenge was different. Motion sensors used passive infrared. Elias's approach was to be colder and slower than the room. He became a statue for minutes at a time, waiting for the air currents to settle, for the very house to forget he was there. He found the sarcophagus in the center of the mansion. It was an unassuming gray cube, like a large shipping container, with a single heavy door. The lock was a mechanical marvel, impossible to pick with conventional tools. But Elias hadn't come to pick it. He had come to listen. He placed a stethoscope of his own design against the door. Inside, he heard nothing, not just silence, but an aggressive, swallowing nothingness. It was perfect. He felt a thrill that was almost religious. His plan was to disassemble the sarcophagus panel by panel, but as he prepared his tools, a soft rhythmic clicking came from within the chamber. It was faint, but in that profound silence, it was as startling as a gunshot. Click, pause, click, click, pause, click. It was a pattern, Morse code. Elias, his heart now a drum in the void, pressed his ear to the door. He deciphered it. HELP-CLOU-STOPHOBIL, Losicea-DION. Alistair Finch wasn't a recluse by choice. He was a prisoner of his own perfection. The door, designed to seal with absolute acoustic integrity, had malfunctioned years ago, locking him in his own silent tomb. He had been living off nutrient paste from a dispenser, breathing filtered air, slowly going mad with the one thing he had sought above all else: perfect, inescapable silence. Elias's entire mission shifted in an instant. He wasn't stealing a chamber anymore. He was performing a rescue. But the door was impregnable. His tools were for stealth, not brute force. Then he remembered the voltage drop. The sarcophagus's internal system's air scrubbers lights. The nutrient dispenser would be running on the same slightly weakened power. He raced back to the substation. Instead of a subtle rerouting, he performed a drastic one, creating a massive power surge directed straight at the Finch estate. Back inside the house, he heard a sharp crack from within the sarcophagus, followed by the whine of a dying electric motor. The surge had fried the door's primary magnetic lock. With a grunt of effort, Elias pulled the massive door open. A wave of stale, cold air washed over him. Inside, huddled in a corner, was a gaunt, pale man blinking in the sudden light and sound. The sound of Elias's breathing was like a hurricane to him. Elias didn't take the sarcophagus. He helped Alistair Finch walk out of it, into the noisy, imperfect, beautiful world. The police, when they arrived hours later after a neighbor reported the power fluctuations, found an empty, silent chamber and no signs of forced entry. They assumed it was a bizarre case of industrial espionage, a failed attempt to steal proprietary technology. They never found Elias Vance. He had failed in his original crime, but in a locked drawer in his apartment, he kept a single, perfect memory, not of a thing, but of a sound. The sound of a lock breaking, and a man taking his first gasping, grateful breath of noisy air. It was the most valuable thing he had ever stolen.